So, Key, do you like this move for your Lakers?
I do. I like the move because one thing it told me about him is he wanted out of Portland to get to an opportunity to win something. And that's what he did. Now the Lakers look a little bit different. It looks a little bit different for us because we got a rim protector, the big. And DeAndre Ayton, being the #1 overall pick, some people think that he's not at the level, worthy of that pick. But I believe, just off the top of my head, he's averaged like 17 points a game. I mean, he's like in double-digit rebounds. I mean, like he's a real center, a real five, so to speak. So it'll be, and he can score the basketball. I like him a lot. And in the draft class that he came out in, people looking at that, right? Luka, Trae Young, and so they started looking at him versus that, and he's not getting his credit. And he was moved on from Phoenix to Portland in a dumpster fire trade, and so now we get him. And I think we get him with Luka and LeBron and whoever else we put on the roster. Now I feel good about our chances. The rocket chair could have some cushion in it now.
Yeah, no surprise here. Does it fix some of the issues? Yeah, you get a rim protector. And the talent is all. See, the thing about DeAndre, the talent has always been there. It's just character issues, you know, the things that are behind the scenes. And, you know, when you hear about him not making it to practice or making excuses like being in the driveway or having problems in the locker room, you got to feel like, hey, if he's going to be in the locker room with LeBron and Luka and some of the culture that he's going to get while being a Laker, you know, maybe some of that stuff can rub off and make him finally fulfill the talent of being a #1 pick. Because, you know, you got to understand, this guy got picked over Luka Doncic, guys like Trae Young, and most notable names that come to mind in that draft. So hopefully this can fill a gap for the Lakers who needed somebody to fulfill that, because when we saw Rudy Gobert go in there, it looked like Will Chamberlain in the playoffs. It was definitely a hole in the middle that the Lakers needed to fix. And so I love this move. Hopefully some of the LeBron type of mindset and culture setting can rub off on the kid, because he could be a big asset.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this all week. One of the options for the Lakers being DeAndre Ayton. I think this is a great move for the Lakers. They needed to go and get a real big. They needed a rim protector. They needed a lob option for Luka. I think this gives them someone that you know has the talent. So if he can adjust to the culture and the situation in LA, this could be a really great thing for them. So does this swing you back? Are you back on the bandwagon now, Keith?
I wasn't never off. I just felt like it was a retirement situation coming up for LeBron. It had they not did something with the roster. So we start off by now getting DeAndre Ayton. So the LeBron thing is cool. And then we got Luka. Now we'll see Reeves and Rui and whoever else, if that's something that we package up and move on from, or we insert them into the lineup, because that's probably your five right there, right? You got LeBron, you got Ayton, you got Luka, you got Reeves, and you got Rui. That's your five. So now what's the next? What are we going to do with the others?
We're going to add depth?
We might be able to.
Yeah? You're getting excited?
No, I'm not overly excited, but I think we got what we should have had last year in the Williams trade that was vetoed for medical reasons, so to speak.
Yeah, this is a great signing.
You know, LeBron has been the GOAT of subliminals throughout his career. You know, it could be something, it couldn't be. I think he wouldn't mind going back. You know, for him to go to Cleveland and golf, like, I'm not flying to Cleveland for nothing. You know, and I understand he has his school there and his ties are there, but he's out there golfing and wearing a hat that says, welcome home. I wouldn't put it past him if this could be a homecoming, possibly a trade of some type. Maybe he's out there with Rich Paul, meeting with Dan Gilbert about the possibilities of having this farewell tour out of Cleveland, because, look, Cleveland the door is wide open for them out of the East to get to the finals. You put LeBron in that mix, and if you can keep Donovan Mitchell and some of your core pieces and figure out how to get LeBron in there, I can see that happening.
He's in Cleveland right now because that's his area, region that he's from. That's the only thing. He's just there doing what he does every single year. Goes and visits the school, hangs out for a couple of weeks, whatever the case may be. His roots are there. I don't think he's going back to Cleveland. And I said this last year when we were trying to figure out what's LeBron going to do. He's not going anywhere, Joy, until he decides to retire. And the reason that is because he doesn't want to alienate the situation in L.A. But all of a sudden, you have strung us along for so long, hanging out with us, meaning Laker fans, and giving us hope for certain things, and then you're just going to rip it right from underneath us? He's not going to do that. His grounds are here in L.A. now. Mm-hmm. From a business perspective, and I know people, he could do that online and his phone calls and Zoom now. He doesn't have to be in L.A.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does have to be in Los Angeles to do some of the powerful things and powerful moves that he wants to make. And that's just the reality of it. I think he likes the new ownership. When they first bought the team, him and Luka was praising the new ownership and seeing things in a positive light. On top of all that, he just hired the damn coach last year. He just hired JJ last year. I almost called him Steve Nash, but JJ last year. He just hired him. So now you had us hire him, and you getting ready to leave us?
Yeah, I don't think that LeBron is going anywhere this year. I do think LeBron knows that the online detectives are going to start getting all squirrely if he posts something like this. But it doesn't really make sense for Cleveland for them to give up their core. They're in a position where they can compete for a championship this year. It doesn't really make sense from LeBron from a business standpoint.
Right.
You want to finish your career with this team that you've been playing for. And I don't know that the story is the same in Cleveland anymore. Like, we had that moment.
Yeah, been there, done that.
So I think he's just messing with everybody. And why not? Because they're going to play along. Well, the Knicks have their guy. They reportedly hired Mike Brown as their next head coach. Brown has been coaching in the league for over 2 decades with 3 stints as a head coach over 11 seasons. He most recently was with the Kings, leading them to their first playoff appearance in 17 seasons back in 2023. And most notably, he coached LeBron and the Cavs to the NBA Finals in 2007. So, Paul, do you like this hire? Can Mike Brown get the Knicks to the Finals?
Yeah, I love this hire because there was only a few people that can get the Knicks to the Finals that I had in mind. Mike Brown was actually one of them. I myself was one of them, but I turned down the job.
Of course.
And, I have no interest in coaching. And so I thought, getting Mike Brown, a guy with the experience that he's had, he's a player's coach. This is what they needed. Tibbs was a coach. This is something that we've talked about over the last week or so, that they needed a player's coach who can understand them, who can understand what they need, that can put them in a system so they can thrive on both sides of the ball. And you need a coach that can deal with the New York media. And Mike Brown has been that. He's been in situations where, he even got ejected. I remember he got ejected in a game, and he came to the podium with the laptop like it was a joke. Like, I can deal with y'all. Like, yeah, he was like, yeah, he got ejected and look, showed it to him. Like, he knows how to deal with the media. And so I love this hiring, a guy who has championship experience, respected among the players, been under the coaching tree of Steve Kerr, Popovich. He was recently coach of the year for the Sacramento Kings, I believe, a few years ago. And so I really like this hiring. It couldn't have got any better because all the coaches that are out there, I was like, they're good. We're either already having teams that they were looking at, or they just didn't want the job, like myself. And so this is a great hiring for the Knicks.
No, it's interesting because I always look at the coaching carousel, the cycle, when it comes up, and you look at the names and the recycling names and the microwaving of names, you just push it, bing, and they ready to go. Mike Brown's one of those guys that is a really good coach, but he will never get that credit from Cleveland when he took him to the championship because he's playing with LeBron James. Mm-hmm. He wasn't like out there with just some guys. He was out there with LeBron, so people won't give him that good credit. You look at Sacramento in a year ago, guys, coach of the year or 2 seasons ago, they give him a new extension, pay him all this money. Beginning of the season, they start off a little slow. They fire him, right? And now all of a sudden he's back on the market, and the Knicks get the opportunity to get him. So I think they got a really good coach. They need to address, obviously, the depth issues. But even crazier than that, as I had Nick do some research for me, and I thought about Tibbs and I thought about Mike Brown and the minutes that they play, they players. Mike Brown will run your tongue in the ground, too. Tibbs was 3rd in the league at 32.7, and Mike Brown was 31.9 prior to being fired at 4th. Wow. Yeah, he gonna run you. He gonna run you in the ground too. So you know you getting a disciplined coach from a defensive standpoint, but he doesn't mind only going 6, 7 deep on the roster.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't mind doing that. Just look at those minutes. So they got to be, they got to be mindful of that.
Well, I mean, I think he's a good coach. I don't know that there was really anyone that they were going to hire that I was going to be like, this is a complete difference maker at this point. I think he's great with the media, and he did a good job with Sacramento, which is not the easiest place to win. And he has a lot of experience. So I think it's a good hire. The thing that worries me about this hire, no matter who was going to be stepping into this role, is the pressure of immediately turning this team around and getting to, at the very least, the Eastern Conference Finals, but the expectations is obviously the finals. Now, he's done that before, so it's not like this is, foreign territory to him, and he's played coached in many, high-profile situations, being with the Warriors and the Spurs, and with LeBron in Cleveland,
and the Lakers.
And the Lakers. This hire requires an immediate results. And so whoever was stepping into this position is going to be scrutinized in a different type of way. I love that he's up for the challenge, and we'll see how it turns out. But I think that the reasoning for firing Tibbs did not set up whoever was going to be hired for the Knicks for a great situation, because you hadn't been to the Eastern Conference Finals in 25 years. You improved every single year, and then you fire him for reasons that now you hire Mike Brown, and he's not essentially the same coach.
But I was going to let you finish.
He is more of a player's coach than a coach. So personality-wise and all of that, very different than Tibbs. But coaching style?
Same. Tongue in the ground. Defensive-minded coach like Tibbs was. Defensive coordinator like Tibbs was.
So then maybe the players coach element will be the thing that gets them over the edge. One name that was brought up during New York's coaching search was South Carolina head coach Dawn Staley. The Knicks reportedly spoke with her about the opening and were impressed, but they ultimately passed on her for Mike Brown. So is it a mistake for the Knicks to pass on Dawn Staley?
I don't like the word mistake because they kicked the tires on it, and whatever those conversations were in the room, there was no offer that was made. Hell of a coach. Women's basketball in college certainly would have lost a star in the coaching ranks. But at least, and I hate to say but at least, but I don't even know how to get to where I want to get to without saying that, there was an opportunity that has now opened up the door for other women in women's basketball that may have the opportunities to get a look. So you got to start getting a look, especially in professional sports when you deal with gender issues, you deal with race issues, you deal with all that until the door is actually open. And the Knicks, just like Portland did with Becky Hammond a couple years ago, they opened the door for an opportunity. It just didn't happen. And now you see it happening again where they opened up the door, the Knicks did, but it just hasn't happened yet. So, no, I don't think it was a mistake. It's an opportunity that just didn't materialize at the level that we would probably all hope for.
Yeah, I don't think it was a mistake either. I love that, like you said, Key, they're opening the door for women who have brilliant basketball minds to enter the NBA as head coaches now, because we talked about, was it Becky Hammond getting the interview with Portland? And so now more and more the women coaches are starting to come into the play and get in the coaching carousel, as Key likes to say. And so I love that. I don't like this job for Don as a first-time NBA coach.
Because of the pressure?
Well, it's not the pressure. Don can handle the pressure. But this just hasn't been a stable job, the head coaching job for the New York Knicks. When you look at the past coaches outside of Tibbs, this is a 2 or 3 year deal, for the most part. In some cases, 1. And so, I really like to have a situation to where she could come in, get her feet wet with a rebuilding situation to where you have a little more leeway to make a mistake and do the things you want to do and implement your coaches and put in your system. And that takes some time as a new NBA head coach. And so, but I love the fact that she's in the talks.
Yeah, I didn't really like this job for any first-time head coach, to be honest with you, for the same reasons. I mean, I just said it with Mike Brown. I think Mike Brown is capable of advancing the Knicks where they need to go because he's done it before, but he is not going to have any time to do that. Tibbs made them better every single year, and they still fired him. And now the expectations are get back to the Eastern Conference Finals or the finals right away, or at least within these first 2 years. So this was going to be a tough job for anyone to take. But I do love that the Knicks interviewed her and that it's out there that she's being in these conversations. Because let's be honest, with Dawn Staley's resume in college basketball, she would be hired immediately this year with all the coach openings if she was a man. She's 287 and 34, four-time Naismith Coach of the Year, 7 Final Four appearances, 4 national championship appearances, and 3 national championships in the last 9 seasons. She's more than qualified to step into the next level. And she's a name that is respected in any basketball circle. So I think she's going to get an opportunity to be a head coach in the NBA very soon. This particular job, I mean, I don't know. It's so... I don't know how long Mike Brown's going to last there.
Yeah. Mike Brown, they be, they be giving it to my man, though. They give him a job, and all of a sudden, boom. You know, like, stop it.
Mike is respected, though. As long as you're respected in the NBA circles, and like I said, he's a player's coach. The players still like him. Like Doc. Of course. He like Doc.
Yeah, I think Mike is a good coach. I'm talking about the Knicks. I'm not talking about what Mike is capable of doing. If I knew that he was going to have a 3 or 4 year window to get the Knicks where they are trying to go, I don't think that's what it is, though. I think it's a 2-year window.
That was so crazy. That was what's so crazy about the Sacramento deal. He comes from Golden State. He turns them completely around. They hadn't been in the playoffs forever. And then they blink, and they like, oh, man, you got to get out of here.
Yeah, they started...
After they gave him some money.
13 and 18. But I don't think they should have fired him.
No, not at all.
No, I think that has something to do with him and a player. Maybe
even if it was, what's the name, they wind up... trading him to San Antonio.
Yes.
You know?
Something with that.
De'Aaron Fox.
De'Aaron Fox, yeah.